Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're having a good week. On Saturday we have the card from the Echo Arena in Liverpool. Natasha Jonas fights Michaela Mayer. But in the men's game there's a very, very intriguing rematch between ZAK Cullen, who is the current British Super-Middleweight champ. He's also got the Commonwealth belt at the same weight. And he is fighting ZAK CHELLI. And like I say, this is a rematch from, 2020, lockdown, wasn't it? Yeah. It's a split draw, the first fight. Many people thought Cullen won it. Did I have him ahead? I know I had it close, and I remember sort of not really complaining about the draw. But a lot of people thought Cullen won it, and definitely CHELLI had come into that fight as the favourite. Because although his previous fight, he lost to Cody Davis, who was undefeated, he lost over 10 rounds. And that was despite flooring Davies, actually. He was expected to beat Cullen because Cullen had already had a couple of stoppage defeats. He'd had one over 8 rounds to Felix Cash. That was the previous year, which would have been 2029. And he got done in a round by Roy Sheehan. And that was, I think that was one of those boxer tournaments, you know, those sort of prize fighter by another name things. I could be wrong about that. I think it was one of those. Anyway, that was back in 2018. Now, if you look at his current record, this is ZAK Cullen. He's got 22 wins with 10 KOs, 4 defeats, all by knockout, and 1 draw. And that implies one thing. Even though he's a big lad at the weight, he's 6'3", orthodox fighter, looks kind of imposing. He's prone to getting walloped. Not that he's ever rolled over. I mean, all the stoppages have been legitimate, and he gives his all. I mean, you only have to go back 2 fights to watch him getting stopped in 4 rounds by Diego Pacheco, and he just looked out of his depth. It wasn't like, you know, he was sort of tickled and then fell on the floor. No, Diego Pacheco just looked like a much better fighter. That was actually at the Echo Arena in Liverpool as well, by the way. And then he came back again after that 4th stoppage defeat, fought Mark Heffron for the British and Commonwealth Super-Middleweight titles and was expected to get blown away. In actual fact, he did the blowing away because he knocked out Heffron, who was on a bit of a streak, to be honest, only had been beaten twice previously. He knocked him out in 3 rounds, and he doesn't have a lot of knockouts, ZAK Cullen. In fact, that was only his 10th knockout in 22 wins. Now, there's no doubt that CHELLI is going to be looking to right the wrong, because I think afterwards he perceived he was the one that was more irate by the draw. He felt he'd won. And he's not short for the weight either. He's 6 foot tall, which is fine for a super middle, another orthodox fighter. But he suffered his own upset a couple of fights ago. And that was to Mark Jeffers, undefeated in 15. Came in, CHELLI was expected to deal with him. But Jeffers, great fight that was. That was for the English super middleweight title. And Jeffers walked away with a unanimous decision, thoroughly deserved. I thought he disrupted CHELLI's rhythm. He worked him constantly. The industry of Jeffers was, you know, considerable. He was just outworking him. He was forcing him to fight in spats. He was controlling the range pretty much, Jeffers. CHELLI just couldn't get his rhythm going, couldn't get the jab going. There was no consistency to CHELLI's work. And he lost deservedly. Mark Jeffers deserved to win that fight. Picked up the English super middleweight title on the way. Now, prior to that, CHELLI scored one of his biggest wins. He outpointed Anthony Sims Jr., who came in with 23 wins and 1 defeat. Sims Jr. was a former matchroom fighter who was highly touted to go places. I actually sat ringside for one of his early fights. I think it was in Peterborough at the showground. It was one of those next-gen cards on Sky. And I thought, okay, this guy's all right. No, not brilliant, but okay. But his career totally stalled. And it was CHELLI. CHELLI was the last one to stall it because Sims Jr., he looks like he might be a busted flush, to be honest with you. And he hasn't fought since that CHELLI fight. That was almost a year ago in February of 2023. So definitely CHELLI is, in recent fights has blown hot and cold, and so has Cullen. Now, Cullen, to be honest with you, this is a difficult fight to predict because, like I say, if he's hit clean, he'll go. But there's no doubt in his guts, his metal, inner metal, his physical strength. He does have these advantages, 6'3", very long reach. I don't know what his reach is, but he's 30 years old, so he's not exactly ancient. He's probably in his prime. But he doesn't always use those dimensions. He likes to get in close and have a bit of a punch-up. And that's probably been his undoing. I mean, he got stopped in 6 by Kevin Zajo. That was a couple of fights before the Pacheco defeat. He's also been stopped in 8 by Felix Cash. No shame in that. I mean, Cash was 11-0 at the time. And that was for the Commonwealth middleweight title. So, again, although he can carry the weight, being 6'3", no problem, he nevertheless, he's had some good wins. I mean, he picked up the English middleweight title at one point. But he's very much a hot and cold fighter, and he just doesn't seem to use those dimensions like he should. He likes to have a good old row, like a lot of fighters. Kind of like a poor man's Diego Corrales or something like that. But anyway, if you go back to Chelli, there's no doubt that ZAK CHELLI, he's 26 years old, so I'm not going to say he's underachieved. But when he started his career, he was probably thinking, I'm definitely going to be an international star. I mean, in 2019 he won an area title, a Southern area title. Then his following fight, he fought Cody Davis and lost over 10, decision over 10, which was a setback. But I don't think that was as big a deal as the defeat to Mark Jeffers. Having said that, Jeffers really did look the part, and he was definitely someone who he's one of those unfashionable sort of fighters who's actually very, very good. If you look at some of his other results, Chelli, he beat Jermaine Brown, who was undefeated at the time, 12-0. He beat him by unanimous decision. He beat Jack Kilgannon. That was in the previous fight prior to the Brown fight. He was undefeated, 11-0. Stopped him in 6. That was only an 8-rounder, weirdly. So Chelli was kind of on a bit of a streak until he bumped into Jeffers. And he would probably say, well, I took the Jeffers fight early, easy. I underrated him, basically. Is he going to do this with Cullen? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think he thinks, oh, hang on a minute, I should have lost that. I should have lost that Jeffers fight. And I'm lucky to be getting a shot at the British and the Commonwealth titles, even though this is a rematch. That's probably the sales pitch that they're using. I'm lucky to be getting this double title shot so quickly after a defeat. Whereas Cullen, he probably thinks all his Christmases came early when he chinned Heffron. He went from, being a sort of nearly man, like I say, 4 defeats, all by stoppage on his record. Suddenly he's a double champion. So his confidence is going to be very high. Chelli is probably going to be the one with more sort of mental urgency. And it wouldn't surprise me if we saw Cullen again fighting smaller than he should, trying to get involved with Chelli. Now, of course, they know each other from that first fight, although that was 3.5 years ago. So it begs the question, well, the obvious question is who's going to win? It's a very difficult fight to predict because, like I say, the form of both men has been erratic at best lately. But with Cullen, his confidence being very, very high, with Chelli perhaps having his confidence has taken a knock with regards to the Jeffers fight, I would probably say overall I sort of favour Jack Cullen 55-45. But at the same time, I can see Chelli landing a punch and stopping Cullen. Nevertheless, I'm going to stick with my gut instinct and say that I think Cullen defeats Chelli, maybe by split decision, majority decision, on points, over 12. Even as these words are coming out of my mouth, I can see in my mind's eye, you know, Chelli knocking him out. But I don't know. If Chelli can put the Jeffers defeat behind him and sort of reset his psyche, his mentality, and if that has been a wake-up call rather than a demoralising factor, I think he'll probably, he might well knock out Cullen. But I just think Cullen, with that victory over Heffron, I mean, that may have really given him almost a rebirth of his career, if you like. And some of these defeats he suffered, as bad as they are, I like the way he's come back from these defeats, and he's fought, you know, good men afterwards. He's never shirked a sort of shot. He never shirked a challenge. And I like the way that when he went in with Heffron, who was actually flying and was doing really, really well at this weight, super middleweight, I liked his whole demeanour in that fight. You know, the fact that he sort of didn't seem in any shape or form perturbed by the fact he was going in against the favourite and coming off a bad defeat to Pacheco. So I like Jack Cullen's mentality, and I'm going to say that he just edges Chelli on points. You watch Chelli will knock him out in the first round. Anyway, what do you think? Leave your comments below, of course, as always. Let me know what you think, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the like button. Do you know, as soon as I click stop on this video, I'm going to be thinking I should have picked Chelli. But I'll stick with Cullen. Cullen on points. Go on, what do you think? Comments below. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.